Hi there, and welcome to Apple World. Katt Williams is not entirely settled to bring Steve Harvey down. I'm not playing. He has been going this way, attempting to disregard him, calling him a hoodlum and a wide range of names, and with all that he has uncovered about Steve, it sort of checks with anything Steve's ex Mary likewise uncovered about him. Currently, Katt has been spilling the tea on Steve in recent weeks. Yet he is presently returning his to a hotshot since he is hitched over here, additionally spilling the tea on Steve. Mary has had meet with Steve for quite a while, and it seems as though things are going to deteriorate from here, so we should separate the show. Steve has been in the loop since the year began due to Katt Williams and his disclosures, and it doesn't appear as though things will get any better for him since his ex, Mary Harvey, has pronounced support for Katt. Now, before you all come at Mary, say that she's an unpleasant ex or that she's deliberately attempting to cause inconvenience for Steve. Well, I'm here to let you know that Mary has a sizable amount of motivation to be pungent as Steve on the grounds that he did her messy, no doubt, and he nearly destroyed her life. In addition, she was hitched to Steve when he did the stuff that Katt blamed him for doing, so she has first-hand information on the things that Steve accomplished for a boost Katt when on the club. She digital recording, and he blamed Steve for a ton of extremely intriguing things like how he has been taking Katt's jokes for quite a long time, and then, at that point, turning up years after the fact to make the jokes look like his own, the very Steve that went to go watch Imprint Curry do his entire sitcom and afterward took all that Imprint Curry had. Now Steve got a sitcom where he the head, and he wear a suit, and afterward, he gets this high-top blur, making all people of color think he got the best setup in the business, and it's a man unit. Then you asked if for what good reason you not a celebrity. I would have rather not been a celebrity. That is the very that despised on Bernie. With this equivalent thing, I would have rather not been a famous actor. No, you were unable to be a famous actor. There are 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood. Consistently not one of them requested a clodhopper dark buddy that can't talk great over and seem to be Mr. Potato Head. There ain't none Katt even guard anted that Steve would claim to go to his shows to help him, yet as a general rule, he was only there to perceive the number of Katt's jokes he could take and pull off. Yet that wasn't all, since Katt likewise spilled about how Steve has been misleading fans for quite a while with his grip to beauty story. Now I realized that Steve wasn't generally rich yet. Katt guaranteed that Steve took it excessively far with the narrative of how he was residing in his vehicle and snoozing parking areas, since he was as excessively penniless to bear the cost of a spot to live. I used to go through the night in parking garages. What was I going to do? I had no place to remain, so I resided in the vehicle. I had $35, and I expressed, "Come on, God, man, I've been attempting to make this little glimpse of heaven. You done forgot about me here." Like, this is a story that Steve has told a greater number of times than I can count, since he just really can't quit discussing it. I get it's a persuasive story, yet whistled Steve out for basing on this truism that Steve never needed to reside in his vehicle like Steve Harvey, telling individuals he used to be destitute. That is my story, that is not his story. Steve Harvey was never destitute when Imprint Curry was visiting with him a long time back. He was making $3,000 a show in real money and completing 5 shows per week. They simply recounted the narratives. This was because of my significant other. I'm where I'm. You expressed that about the primary spouse. You failed to remember that you let us know it was her. Then you proceeded to wed another person that take on a similar mindset as a man. Like, what are you referring to? They want to revise history. Well, think about what anything Katt expressed checks in with what Mary has been saying for every one of the years, including Steve lying about living in a vehicle when Mary met Steve in the 90s. He was a striving humorist, yet he sought after her so emphatically that she before long became hopelessly enamored with him. She wasn't after his cash, since, well, there was no gold to dig. She held him down through difficult situations, and she even gave him a key to her condo in the event that he really wanted some place to crash between gigs. So the tale of him residing in his vehicle, better believe it, that doesn't seem okay. Inevitably, his comedic profession began to take off on the grounds that fans began to signal up to watch his perform, and the interest for him developed considerably further. Well, by then, Steve was more than satisfied with where his vocation was. Nevertheless, Mary pushed him to accomplish more. When he began to get to an insane degree of prevalence, she raised the thought for him to fire up his own club as opposed to performing at different clubs for only a cut of the expense, so he would get more cash flow for himself. Yet, despite the fact that Steve was popular, he had very little cash on the grounds that again he wept. As just getting a cut of the charge at the clubs he was performing at, so he was unable to bear to open a satire club since those things aren't modest. However, Mary was a definitive darling young lady, so she chose to maneuver as long as she can remember reserve funds into Steve, at $250,000 of it, and she assisted him with setting up the parody club, and it wasn't simply cash since she likewise emptied her entire being into the club, helping him out with the insides plan and everything things before. Long took off for Steve, no doubt, and he began bringing in mountains of cash. That was likewise when he began to betray her vigorously with a great deal of ladies, and supposedly his ongoing spouse Marjorie was one of those ladies. When I contemplate how rapidly he pushed ahead from me to Marjorie, that was upsetting. He at last separated from Mary, and he continued on with Marjorie. However, he did marry Grimy. In the separation they got into an insane fight in court, particularly over guardianship of Heir child Winon, who was a minor at the time. Mary guaranteed that Steve was forceful toward him, and she asserted that the separation left her ruined since she lost everything, including her business and her vehicles, and she even got ousted from the home that she imparted to Steve in the separation. Considerably more, Steve never paid her the separation repayment cash that he was requested to by the court, with every one of the messages and the instant messages and the various things that were that I was learning about. I thought the least that he could do restore me toward the finish of it. He left. He just left once he understood that I planned to separate from him. He left. He had a shoulder pack. He left, went right to New York to our loft that we had there, which I never got to see. Coincidentally, however, and afterward she went along with him. They're separated from being bankrupt. She likewise guaranteed that Steve supposedly put hands on their child Winon and frequently left him with wounds. As per TMZ, as per the youngster, Steve hit him with a belt, and afterward an oarboard, the sort utilized for preliminaries in clicks. As per the police report, the cops took photographs of the kid's wounds appearing on his buttocks and right thigh, as well as cuts on his leg. The police report says the kid let the cops know that it was so severe that he experienced difficulty peeing for quite a long time. CPS opened an examination concerning him, but they dropped it on the grounds that obviously there was no proof that Steve implied damage to the kid. Mary then attempted to sue for guardianship of Winon. However, she was bankrupt and couldn't bear the cost of legal counselors. Steve then hit her with a care claim, and with his extravagant legal counselors, he had the option to get sole care of the kid, as indicated by Mary. Steve then distanced her child from her. She guaranteed that he wouldn't allow her to address her child or see him. And surprisingly, more awfully, he knocked on her door and took care of him. There was such a lot of pessimism about her that her child began to despise her. So in addition to the fact that Steve left her broke, he took her child from her after she assisted him with building his vocation. Step by step, and emptied as long as she can remember reserve funds into his profession. He took my Winon from me. He turned my child against me indeed. Assuming there's one individual who has all the smoke for Steve, it's Mary, and that is the reason she is currently backing Katt up and hummeling Steve. Fans had all the smoke for Steve, and they expressed in view of the courses of events and all the different data I found out about Steve and his relationship history he obviously utilized Mary to come up and had no expectations of remaining with her for all time. Steve messy. Subscribe Apple World for more videos.